Well, let me ask you something before we even get started tonight. Do you remember your papa? Do you remember your mama? Maybe your papa's still with you. God bless him. Maybe you lost him years ago, like me, and you still hear his voice, when things just get a little sideways in this world. Now imagine sitting down with him at the kitchen table, cup of coffee, maybe a little something sweet that your mama made, and you pull out your phone and you show him what the President of the United States posted on social media this past Sunday. An AI generated image of himself sitting at a futuristic command center, finger on a big red button, and on the screen behind him, a mushroom cloud rising over the earth with the words, "Target destroyed." Take a second with that. Now tell me, what would your papa say? Well, y'all, welcome to the Hillbilly Think Tank. I'm Spencer Keck, coming at you live from Tunnel Hills here in Hardin County, Kentucky, where we know that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what makes this whole thing worthwhile. And I am the Hillbilly Think Tank. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in this state ever since my kith and kin came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. I am one of the Cumberland Gap originals. Now, I'm sure you've got family that might have even come through the Gap too, or come here not long after that. Maybe your family's been here a while, or maybe, you realize what wonderful folks we are here, especially in Hardin County, and you decided that you wanted to put your roots down here with your family, and you've done so. Welcome. But, I'm coming at you live from right here, like I said, Tunnel Hills, and I'm a combat veteran. I'm a public school teacher. And I am a candidate for District 3 Magistrate. I'll be on your ballot in November. So sit down a spell and let's think this thing through together, this amazing meme, or however you want to see it, that our president has dropped on us, quite figuratively, hopefully not literally. So, what actually happened? Let's just look at it. Now, I know some of you heard about this and thought, come on, Spencer. It's just a meme. He's just trolling. Don't be so serious. And I hear you. I do. But let me lay out exactly what happened because the details absolutely matter. This past Sunday, while thousands of people were gathered in Washington, D.C. for a prayer rally, a faith event on your taxpayers' money, President Donald Trump was on Truth Social posting a series of AI generated images of himself. In one image, he's seated at what looks like a space command center. Matter of fact, it even says Space Force on it. He's got his finger, his literal finger, resting on a big red button. Now, behind him are multiple screens, and on those screens, a massive mushroom cloud erupting over the earth. And the caption on the screens reads, "Target destroyed." He posted it twice. The second time with that Space Force written across it. First time it didn't have it. Second time it did. Now, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. He's posted an AI image of himself as a Jesus-like figure. He's posted an image of, Chicago consumed in flames. He's been doing this pattern for a while now. But this one is different because this man is not just some guy on the internet trolling us. He is the president of the United States of America. He actually has the nuclear codes. Remember that. He commands the most powerful military force in the history of human civilization. He's posting memes about blowing up the earth. Now, I know what my papa would say. Have you thought yet about what your papa would say? What would he think? What would his reaction be? What would your mama's reaction be? If she saw this and you showed her these two images that he put out there, back to back, doubled down, what would your mama say? Again, I know what my mama would say. I know what my papa would say. My papa and I, and my mama and I, we talked about things like this quite often. I would say that 95% of who I am and the values that I stand for, I got from my mama and papa, my maternal mama and papa, because I never got to meet my paternal papa and mama. My paternal. I just got to meet the maternal ones. I do know that they were also good people in their way, but my maternal grandparents, they were it. I try to do everything I can every single day. If I think about it, by asking myself, hey, what would Papa say about this? What would Papa say if I do this? What would Mama say if she heard that I did this? So, is there anyone that this president can say that about? Does he have anyone that was his true mentor besides an emotionally abusive and distant father? Now let's go back. Let's look at the veteran in the room. All right. So I want to talk to my fellow veterans for a minute. And I know that there are a lot of you here in Hardin County. We've got Fort Knox right here in our backyard. And this community has bled for this country for generations. And quite honestly, current events have shown us that we will continue to do that. I served. I deployed. I came back home to Kentucky a different person than when I left, like most of us do. And I want to tell you something that I know in the bones from my marrow, from my time in uniform. Nobody who has ever been close to real weapons, real destruction, makes those kinds of jokes about it, especially not when they are negotiating with another, either nuclear power or a nuclear power want to be. It's just not something that is done by truly thoughtful people that know the gravitas that they have. So when you've seen what these types of weapons do and what highly destructive weapons do, when you've been in places where, the consequences of military action are measured in human lives, in the destruction of human lives, not in likes and shares, well, you don't post mushroom cloud memes just to get attention, just to troll. You just don't. The culture we had in the military, the one that kept us safe, the one that kept our mission honorable, was one of gravity, of seriousness, of respect for the weight of what we carried. And what we as veterans continue to carry. I invite anyone here to read the book, The Things They Carried. That is a book written by a Vietnam veteran. Tim O'Brien is telling you what it is that everyone carried into battle and what they carried after they leave the battlefield. And what we'll never fully be able to take that weight off of us, take those things away from us that we carry. We can find ways to bear it better, but we still carry them. So what I saw Sunday on Truth Social, it had none of that weight of responsibility. And I think a lot of you veterans out there, you felt it too. That uncomfortable feeling in your gut, that sense that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong with this picture. Trust that feeling. It's your training talking. It's your experience talking. It's, if you were caught doing something like that in a high leadership position, you would not have gotten away with it. Now, let's just take a moment here, and I'm going to think about me as the teacher in the room. First, I'm going to go back to the person who taught me the most, who taught me that I need to do just as much listening to people as I do talking. Because, yeah, I've got the gift of gab, but sometimes people don't need that gift of gab. Sometimes they do. Other times, I need to listen. And here's a man who taught me that. So this was an article written in Psychology Today called "The Doctor Will Hear You Now." This was my papa. This here is my mama. And it says here, Dr. Alex Spencer knew that to listen is to heal. So in it, it describes the fact that my papa, Dr. Alex Spencer, one of the biggest things he knew about his practice of medicine was that listening is just as important often as his prescription tablet was. He knew that oftentimes folks need to be listened to more than they need a prescription for something. So with that in mind, as a teacher, I keep trying to remind myself that, if I've got a kid acting up in the classroom, And, I've got some that can really push the buttons. I try to remember what would my papa say was probably going on with these seventh graders when they do that. He would definitely want me to stop and listen. Figure out what the backstory is. Did they just lose their mom and they're not talking about it? Did their dad just lose the fifth job in 5 months? And is the family, careening towards disaster? There's always something my papa would say. Now, whether I am able to truly gather what it is, that's, I can't say that I do as great as my papa would have liked me to, but I attempt to. So as the teacher in the room, again, let me put on that old teaching hat for a moment, because I'm also a public school teacher and I live here in Hardin County. I've taught here before. Now I teach in JCPS. And I want you to think about this with me. If one of my students, any student in any school in this county, in this school district here, came to school and showed up, and showed other kids a picture they made of themselves blowing up the earth with a nuclear bomb with the words "target destroyed" on it, well, let me just tell you what we'd be doing as teachers. We'd be making phone calls, some real serious ones, because we have a duty to report. And then we'd be sitting down with parents. We'd be asking serious questions about what's going on at home, what's going on in that child's head, and what kind of support that child may need. We'd also try to figure out, is there something the family needs? Because we'd recognize that as a red flag. We teach our kids that words have weight, that they have to be responsible for their words and for their actions. We teach them that images have power, that what you put out into the world says something about who you are. Now, those are Hardin County, Kentucky values. I definitely say those are just straight up Kentucky values. Those are definitely our rural values and our small town values. Those are values that I see every single day in the families right here in District 3 of Hardin County. And I travel all over this county, not just to District 3. And I see these values all over Hardin County. I see them in every single family in this county. And I know that if they had to have a conversation at the dining table with their child about why their child submitted pictures like that, it'd be a very serious conversation. So again, my question is real simple. Why do we hold our children to a higher standard than we hold to our U.S. president? We really got to think about that. Do you have to think about it too long, I wonder? I know I don't, because I know that my papa had high standards for me. And I looked at him for an example of the highest standards that I could hold as a man. Before I was even a man, I knew that his was the standard that I wanted to live up to. Now, let's just look at another one, a meme that he put out there. I don't know if he actually said it was a meme or, If it's true now, he claims that this is himself walking. And it turns out that is Bashar al-Assad that he posted on Truth Social that he says he was walking with. If you don't remember, Bashar al-Assad was the leader of Syria that was deposed. We supported the side that was deposing him. Our military did. Yet here he has himself walking with him on Truth Social. Now, we've got so many serious things going on in the world right now. And yet, this is what our president is spending time doing. Remember, right? This is coming on the heels of a trip to China that really didn't do America any good. This is on a Sunday when there were thousands of folks gathered in DC on the taxpayers' dime in order to pray, think seriously, and meditate for our nation and our nation's leaders. And instead of being out amongst that and taking part in it, these are the types of things that he felt were necessary to post while all this is going on, one after the other. It was one meme after the other, after the other, after the other, with the one with the nuclear cloud being the most absolutely freaking alarming. All right, well, I see I got some people commenting here, guys. I will be there with you in a second and say hello. First, let's just take one more step back before we look at what this means for Hardin County. Let's just look now at other memes that he has posted. You know, I used to read the book of Revelation and wonder how it was possible that the Antichrist could deceive so many Christians despite openly mocking God and impersonating Christ. I don't wonder anymore. These are previous memes that our commander-in-chief has made for us to pontificate on. If you recall, this one, he put that one out there, said that he should be elected to be the Pope back when the last Pope died and before the current one was elected. So, you know, I know many of us here in this county take our faith very seriously. We have a large contingent of Catholic Christians here in this town. You know, we have many Protestants. We have other faiths as well. We have Muslims. We have people of the Jewish faith, of many other faiths from all over the world, right here in this county. And I don't think that any of those faiths take it lightly when we have a leader dealing death so blithely, acting like it is a joke and it's clickbait. I don't think I've ever seen this. I know I've never seen anything like this in my whole life, and I've seen a lot. So, all right. So again, why does this matter to Hardin County? What does it have to do with us? Well, you know, some of you might be thinking, Spencer, this is all well and good, but what does a Truth Social post have to do with my life here in Hardin County? I'm worried about my road. I'm worried about my water bill. I'm worried about whether my kids' school is going to have enough teachers next year. I'm worried about whether my kids are going to have free breakfast and free lunch next year, because we've been told, right, that they won't. Well, those are exactly the right things that we should be worried about. And that's why I'm running for magistrate, to deal with exactly those issues at exactly the level of government where they get fixed. That's the fiscal court. That's with the magistrates and with our judge executive. But here's the connection I want you to see. The same party, the same GOP that is silent right now about their president posting nuclear bomb memes, they are also the ones cutting the programs that keep this community alive. They're cutting veterans benefits. They're cutting public school funding. They're dismantling the very institutions that Hardin County families depend on. And they stay quiet. Every single time that he makes a post like this, they stay quiet. Because they have to decide, and they have decided, that loyalty to one man matters more than accountability to you. In District 3, whether you live out on the rural end or inside the city limits, you deserve a magistrate who understands that leadership is not about power. It's about responsibility. Your papa knew that. My papa knew that. Your mama knew that. My mama knew that. You know, it used to be something everybody in both parties agreed on. But it's not anymore. It is not something that the other party will do at all right now, unless you have the cojones of Thomas Massey. He's calling out these type of outrages. He votes 91% of the time the way a conservative Republican is expected to. But he believes that being a conservative means being responsible, and that being responsible means not starting wars with no strategic end in sight, no strategy outlined, no real reason given to the voting public. And he refuses money from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, that big PAC that donates to every party, whether Democrat or Republican. He refuses that money. He refuses to vote the way they want him to vote. Since he doesn't take their money, he doesn't see a reason for it. So that's the only one that is calling out this foolishness. We know that Senator Paul does once in a while too. But, you know, the writing's on the wall. If you push back against pictures that would not be acceptable if I saw them come from any child in my classroom, and yet we're supposed to accept it from our president of the United States constantly. So let's look. What is it we need to do? Before we get into the call to action, let's consider what actions, if any, have been taken at all. Now, we know that the action our president is taking, besides putting out these memes, is saying this. He's saying that Iran's ceasefire is on life support after he rejected Tehran's response. So he has dismissed their peace proposal as stupid. Now, does that sound like you're really negotiating? Or does that sound like you think that bullying is a negotiation? I know anytime I encountered a bully, I never thought of them as being master negotiators. twisting my arm wasn't a negotiation. That was torture. So that's one thing we've got going. What else do we have going? Well, in addition to what we saw earlier, he's also putting out these things. I have been asked by Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Assad, and the President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, to hold off on our planned military attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran, which was scheduled for tomorrow. And that serious negotiations are now taking place, and that, in their opinion, as great leaders and allies, a deal will be made, which will be very acceptable to the United States of America, as well as all countries in the Middle East and beyond. This deal will include, importantly, no nuclear weapons for Iran. Based on my respect for the above-mentioned leaders, I have instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Daniel Kane, and the United States military that we will not be doing the scheduled attack of Iran tomorrow, but have further instructed them to be prepared to go forward with a full, large-scale assault of Iran on a moment's notice in the event that an acceptance deal is not reached. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. All right, so that is some breaking news. He's also got some other similar posts, just variations of what this says out there that you can go and find. How is that one looking? Is that one any more sane? I cannot say that I think it is, but it's up to you to decide. Now, in addition, we know that Israel and the Hezbollah war, it just keeps on going too. And that's one thing we've tried to get to stop. If Israel would stop that war, we'd be able to negotiate quite a bit better with Iran. But nope. Israel, Hezbollah war, it's persisting despite the truce extension, and Lebanon's death toll has passed 3,000. So with all that going on, and we still got our great leader doing what he's doing. Now, last thing you should be aware of before we get down to what does it mean and what is our call to action. This is one of the latest things that happened also.
In this footage, an intense late-night flash and a massive glowing orange mushroom-shaped plume illuminating the sky near Beit Shemesh in central Israel. The powerful blast, recorded on May 16, shook homes across the Jerusalem region, triggering immediate online speculation of an emergency mishap or an active kinetic attack. However, official statements from Tomer, Israel's state-owned rocket propulsion specialist, quickly clarified the event as a pre-planned, controlled static motor test that proceeded entirely according to schedule. The combustion site, located at a dedicated engine testing facility within the sensitive Sdot Micah airbase footprint, is responsible for validating Israel's premier solid rocket motors. Tomer develops and manufactures the high-energy propulsion units that...
So, a lot of folks are saying this is a bunch of hooey. That actually is a nuclear facility that was hit by Iranian missiles, rockets, drones, and that they're trying to cover it up. If you look at that plume, that's a very significant plume. That's not something someone would do in an area where people live, which it was. So I think this is absolute crock.
That power critical state assets, including the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 ballistic missile interceptors, the Barak MX air defense system, and Shavit satellite launch vehicles. In this footage,
of course, you'll have to decide again, is that real? Is it reality that they're telling us there in Israel? Was that really planned? No, I don't believe it, because it happened as those attacks were incoming. That was a landed hit, but they're trying to sell us something different if we're buying it. All right, y'all. Before I go on and we'll talk about our call to action, let's see who we got on here tonight. Don't want to ignore anybody. So we've got Donkster Plays saying, hey, how's it going? Tom saying, I knew one grandfather, two grandmothers. My maternal grandfather flew Civil Air Patrol out of Norfolk during the war and taught women to work on airplanes by day. Man, that's awesome. So Tom says, my paternal grandfather was a chemistry teacher at the College of William and Mary. Great university. We didn't come west until the 1970s. Tom says, the AI fantasies of the kakistocrat in chief are seriously disturbing to any sentient person. Yeah, I have to say the same. Carpe Diem says, the bar can go no lower. The office of the president is now at an all-time low. It's in the swamp. Yeah, I have to absolutely agree with you guys. And Tom says, years ago, I worked as a record driver for a company that had the police contract for that county. Some of the things I handled in that part of my life still bother me, and I readily accept that they weren't as awful as some things combat vets dealt with. Damn. Well, Tom, I appreciate that, and hopefully people will think about that, as we are moving forward, deciding where we're going to go. Jimmy Meyer says, when I seen a picture of Donald Trump's face put over George Washington, and they called that patriotism. You're no longer Republicans, change your name. Jimmy also says, okay, picture of Jesse Ventura standing next to Arnold Schwarzenegger is a real picture. Trump's face on Stallone's body is some fake ass shit. Just reading verbatim. Tom says, I've been self-identifying as an atheist for over 50 years, and I find the Orange Menace atrocious. Lazy H. Akers says, some people think the change was during Nixon, but I think the tipping point was Reagan. Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Lazy H. Tom says, anything I read authored by Idjit comes out like a syllable salad, not even word salad, frankly. Yep, have to agree with you guys all 100%, or should I say 600%, since it seems like we have gotten some new math from our commander-in-chief. All right, y'all. So here is what I'm asking. All right. Not asking for you to agree with me on everything. I'm not asking you to become a Democrat if that's not who you are. This district is conservative leaning, and I respect that. I grew up in it. What I'm asking is this: talk to your neighbors, share this episode, ask the question out loud at the kitchen table, at the feed store, at church. Does this reflect our values? Because elections at the local level are won and lost on conversations, not TV ads, not big money, conversations between real people who know each other and who trust each other. And we have real people in this county. And if you believe, like I believe, that the people who represent us should be held to the same standards we hold ourselves and our kids to, and our neighbors, well, then I'd be honored to have your vote for Hardin County District 3 Magistrate. I'm Spencer Keck. I live here. I have taught here. I will show up for this district every single day, without drama, without memes, and without my finger anywhere near a red button. Thank you for spending some time with me today here on the Hillbilly Think Tank. Now, if this episode meant something to you, share it with somebody. Leave a comment. Tell me what your papa would have said, because I genuinely want to know. You can find me right here in Tunnel Hill. I'm not hard to find. I even posted one of my phone numbers here. It's one I use for the show here. And if I see you out and about, I'll give you my other number. But until the next time, let's stay sharp, stay kind, and keep thinking. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank. And remember, united we stand, divided we fall. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keepers. Love your neighbor as yourself. Remember everyone deployed. And go vote. Tomorrow is the day for voting in this primary. And this is the first step in turning around in November. Y'all, I hope that you have had a great time, and we'll catch you on the backside.